21 to 10, which means on a Friday morning it's time to talk arts with Marianne from Arts Out West. How are you?
I'm well, thank you, Angela.
Now, you have got a wonderful project that's got so many aspects to it. We need to do a bit ahead of the event itself, don't we?
We do. This is coming up in March, which is not too far away, in the Cowra area. In fact, it's been a project that's been cooking up for a little while. There's been workshops over the last year or so, and it all comes together in performances and a symposium, and it's looking at the Cowra civilian internment time during the Second World War, particularly people of Japanese heritage, but looking at not that other side of the Cowra breakout that we often hear, the civilians that were interned. Now, our guest today has been involved in the project from the beginning. Mayu is a Tokyo-born artist who grew up bilingual in English and Japanese. She came to Australia in the 1980s and had an extensive career. She was a photojournalist working with the Sydney Morning Herald and the Age's Tokyo Bureau. And then in the 90s, she began working in more different art forms involving photography, video art, performance aspects. And she's been working on the Cowra Civilian Internment Project. Hopefully will give us a bit more of a background as to how it all came about.
Mayu, lovely to have you on the show.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
How did you come to connect with Cowra and the history of the internment camp?
Well, Cowra, as you know, has been the place for reconciliation between Japan and Australia since the end of World War II. And, of course, I have been in and out of Cowra to do with the Cowra breakout and the story of the POWs there for some time. But it has been an issue within me, a niggling issue that whenever I went to the Japanese war cemetery in Cowra, that there were hardly any information about the civilians who are buried there. As a matter of fact, 1/3 of the people buried at that cemetery were not POWs, had nothing to do with the breakout, but were civilians like myself, people who have chosen to live in Australia and living a normal life, nothing to do with the military, because of the governments going to war, were interned, and if they died whilst in internment, they are now buried at the cemetery. And so I wanted to do something about it, and I came together with a couple of other colleagues of mine, Dr. Yuriko Nagata from Queensland University and Keiko Tamura from the Australian National University, originally to lobby to have a interpretive board put up at the Japanese war cemetery about, with the information about the civilians who are buried there. And then that kind of turned into an academic symposium about internment generally during World War II in Australia. But, of course, I'm not an academic. I'm an artist. And I thought, well, how best can I use my skills to be part of this project? And I decided the best way to do this is to work with the community to realize some performances during this symposium and the unveiling of the interpretive board.
Yeah. A very important story to be told. Why do you think it is that it sort of was overlooked, so to speak, in terms of the history, the stories that we know about Cowra and the breakout and that period in World War II?
Well, of course, the Cowra breakout is a very important story, but let's face it, military on both sides, whether you win or lose or whatever, have enough money thereon after to commemorate these people. And that is a good thing. But civilians, well, we don't have money, and not like the military. And so it just becomes, forgotten. And it's very important for a civilian like myself to try to rekindle that memory, especially for the families and of the descendants of these people.
Do you know how many people of Japanese heritage lived in the Cowra camp?
Well, the Japanese civilian internees didn't actually live in the Cowra camp. They were interned in places like Loveday in South Australia, Hay in New South Wales, and Tatura in Victoria. But if they died whilst during interned, first of all, they were buried nearby the camp. But in the 1960s, when the Japanese government worked together with the Kara people to reestablish the cemetery in Kara, they moved all the people from these places and housed them in Kara. And Kara has become their permanent sleeping place.
What's the aim of the arts project in terms of what you would like to achieve, Mayu?
Well, first of all, it is important that, as in with the symposium, the arts project is not just focused on the Japanese. There were other civilian internees around Australia. That includes Australians as well, people who may have been suspected as spies, for an example, or Germans, Italians, and Indonesians, Japanese, many others. And one of the, of course, it would have been great to be able to gather artists from all of these backgrounds. But what we have managed to do in this particular instance is we have a Indonesian Australian artist, Jumadi. He has made a performance called The Gamelan Man with the Kara community to it's a contemporary shadow puppet theater play site-specifically created about a particular civilian internee that was interned in Kara, at the Kara camp, who was a gamelan maker. It's an Indonesian instrument, and it's his story. The other performance we have is the ceremonial performance, which is a performance that's going to be held at the cemetery itself after the official unveiling of the interpretive board and a commemorative ceremony for the Japanese that are buried there, which also includes the Kara community performers, and that's to do with voice and movement. And it's bringing together ceremony and performance. And I guess what I want to achieve for both of these performances is that the community carry on this other aspect of their heritage, the other aspect of peace and reconciliation that Kara has been heralding all this time.
And I know, Mayu, that this project has been running and developing for quite some time. Have the locals really got involved?
Yes. For an example, with the ceremonial performance, which we had workshops with last year with artist Weizen Ho and Alan Shaka, they have managed to work with youth from the community to integrate, without giving away, to bring about their own family histories, the community's family history, and integrate that into a performance that calls the names out of the civilian internees who are buried there. We also, in the case of, in that particular performance, we're also working with a Japanese musician who lives in Kara itself. And Jumadi's shadow puppet performance, we also had workshops when we had kids and adults also from the community who have made the shadow puppets themselves, and they will be performing with him in March when he does his performance at the Civic Centre. The other aspect of all of this that is, I haven't mentioned thus far, is we also have a documentary team. All of this requires documentation. For the unveiling, there are many, and the symposium, there are many former civilian internees and their families arriving. It's a groundbreaking event, and also there are performances. So what we did is, alongside the two performance-based workshops, we ran a documentary making workshop with David Hansen and Bruce Ryan, who have worked with both adults and kids from the Cara and Kanawindra community to learn how to make documentaries, learn how to do interviews, learn how to do documentation of artistic performances. And they're involved bringing all this together so that there is a DVD documentary about making and all the happenings and the events of March.
There are so many aspects to this project. I can just imagine what your spreadsheets would be looking like for keeping everything going with this. It's wonderful to hear from you this morning, and I hope it goes well. It's going to be a huge few days for everyone. Yes,
it's all very busy at the moment with preparations, and I should also mention that we do have, as part of the arts program, we do have a exhibition from a Japanese artist, Mutsumi Tsuda, who has done a photographic exhibition at the Japanese Gardens to do with the New Caledonian aspect of it, which is that many of the Japanese internees who are buried in Cowra were actually living in New Caledonia, married to New Caledonian people, and when the war broke up, they were brought to Australia, interned, and if they died, they are buried in Cowra.
How interesting. Mayu, thank you so much for joining us this morning. I hope it goes well.
Thank you very much.
Mayu Kanamori, there. Marianne, the whole community must be involved in this.
There's been a lot of, and looking at the names, there's a lot of people who wear many hats in Cowra,
yes,
and will be involved in these performances, which will be something unlike what we've seen before. So if you want to catch those, they are happening early March. The exhibition that Mayu mentioned is on from March the 6th at the Cowra Japanese Gardens. The Shadow Puppet performance, Gamelan Man, is on Friday, March the 7th at the Cowra Civic Centre at 5:45, and that ceremonial performance will happen after the official events, which are happening at the Japanese War Cemetery. They run between 10 and 11 a.m. on Sunday, the 9th of March. And that symposium, for people who are interested, will run from March 6th to 9th. There'll be 100 or so people visiting. There'll be lots of academics involved, lots of researchers. Great if you're into local history. And that's running also at the Cowra Civic Centre. If you want more details, Cowra Visitors Centre have got all of these and can take bookings, and their number is 63424333.
And Marianne, a good idea for us to talk about this project early on, because there's so many different aspects of it. We want to just give you a bit of forewarning for it.
Yeah, and it's only a couple of weeks away, and of course that is around the whole time of the Cowra Festival of International Understanding, quite appropriately, so there'll be a bunch of events around that as well.
Big year in Cowra with the Cowra Breakout celebrations, the anniversary, 70th anniversary in August, and